The people in these stories really have a run-in with members of a cult? We may never know. They themselves may never want to find out. Grab a blanket, turn off your lights, and realize that there are some secrets and some societies that you may never want to meet. Possible cult found as a preteen. This story is rather difficult to explain because of all the factors involved, and the fact that my memory is rather hazy, apart from a very few specific things. When I was probably around the age of 9 to 10, my friends and I went on a field trip to a historical museum. I don't remember what it was like exactly, but essentially, one of the big gimmicks was that after you explore the museum, you were allowed to take a walk through the abandoned town that was related to the museum's history. The day went normally. We walked through the museum and started walking through this little abandoned area with a bunch of broken down houses and dead animals. We were ordered to, under any circumstances, not step off to the main path and explore the actual insides of the houses and the broken down buildings. However, we were all children, and naturally, we disobeyed. It was fun until we found a dirt-covered cellar on the side of one of the houses, and being curious, we peeked inside. We found a pentagram. Since nobody actually inhabited this place, it was extremely terrifying to find the symbol as it appeared to be very recently drawn. There were several other drawings inside the cellar entrance, but I can't promise you that they are there as my mind remembers them. There might have been a drawing of a goat head or something, but I am positive that the pentagram was there. It was at this point that we started turning back. We were a little spooked out, but we were all just still cracking jokes. However, the man leading the tour got very, very furious at my friend's mother and basically started yelling at her for letting us wander off like that. Then we saw him step off into the other side and made a phone call. I don't know what he was saying, but he looked extremely panicky. As we started to trek back, I'm talking probably like 5 or 6 cars, started driving up and down the path. One pulled over at the place where we saw the pentagram. Keep in mind that this was supposedly an abandoned place. We pretty much booked it after that. It might be a little bit of a stretch to assume that it was a cult or something, but I get creeped out thinking the implications of what we saw. Destined to be the bride of a cult leader. I posted this in Reddit, Tales from Retail, and was encouraged to post it here as well. Years ago, as a 17-year-old, I worked at a deli in a grocery store. This grocery store was in a small town, so it seems as if we had a very concentrated amount of crazy people. I was really naive and did not know how to say no to people, so I got into a lot of perplexing situations there. For our uniforms, we had to wear white button-up blouses, black pants, black aprons, and a huge name tag. The name tag not only had our first names, but our last names as well. My first name is slightly unique, but my last name is uncommon. Basically, I'm really easy to find. You search my name in Google or Facebook, and I am the only one as of now that pops up. I was always really uncomfortable with people seeing my full name in such a public job. An older man with big glasses, white beard, and red plaid coat came in one day, asking for something small. As I was dishing it up, I did my usual chatter with the customer. He was asking me a lot of really uncomfortable personal questions, but I wasn't quite catching on that he was getting creepy. I was a senior and share that with him. He asked me for a few more things and he was on his merry way. I promptly forgot about him. He came back in 1 week later and asked me if he could take a picture of me. I didn't know what to think of it, but I smiled and said that I belonged behind a camera, not in front of one. He had a nervous laugh and then disappeared. About 15 minutes later, a coworker ran up to me and asked me if I just saw this old guy in a red plaid coat take a picture of me from behind this glass window we had by the entrance. It was really creepy, but I let it go. About 2 weeks after this, he came back in and waited until I was free to speak to him. He told me that his name was something like, and this is not his real legal name, it was one he made up, Emil Lambranch. He asked me if I would like to go to his home out in the country every Thursday night and be his hostess for his readings that he had. He said he wanted a beautiful woman to greet his guests and be admired by his side. I told him thank you, but I worked 2 jobs and I valued my few nights a week that I had off and would rather spend time with family. In trying to convince me, he told me that he had a community of people that lived on his land and they were all very peaceful. I turned him down again and moved on to a customer waiting for me. Later on that week, Emil Lambranch came back in with some flyers. Apparently, he had been going door to door and handed them to me, told me he was waiting for me and left. I read the literature on my break. One was a typed out love poem. It was very sexual. The next was some political flyer. I guess he was running for president or something. The third absolutely creeped me out. I wish I still had it to type it up for you word for word. Basically, it was informing people of the new kingdom and how Emil Lambranch was the leader of the new kingdom and that he had a bride waiting for him. His bride was me. He put my full stinking name in there and explained how he commissioned a local artist to paint a large portrait portraying me as his bride. Apparently, it was sitting above his fireplace. He said that we were to have descendants who would rule the new kingdom. That was it. I'd had enough of him. I went home crying and asked my mom what to do. She immediately called the police, and they issued a restraining order on him. They took all of my papers from him and talked to him. He told them that I wanted to be his bride and was waiting until I was 18. Ew. Well, Emil Lambranch still came back into the store that I worked at for the next month. He would stand over by the magazines and just watch me for hours. It made me nervous. Finally, a coworker alerted the store manager, who told him he could never come back inside. No, he just stood outside the door. Apparently, that summer he was jailed for some violent behavior, and I never saw him again. My run-in with a cult. Okay, this is my first time trying to tell this story. Bear with me. I live in a rural part of Kentucky. There is not much to do here for a couple of bored teenagers. You always hear about local urban legends. Every town has one or two. My town is no different. Kentucky has a cult presence. There is a distillery in a remote part of the area. It sits by the Kentucky River on a stretch of road out in the middle of nowhere. Kids in the area love to throw parties there. One of my friends, Jay, was one of these kids. Jay moved to our school in the middle of the year. He knew everyone, and everyone knew him. During a dull math lecture, Jay and I started talking about local myths surrounding the area. There are quite a few. Jay starts telling me about a distillery he used to throw parties at. He says that he's heard rumors that a cult meets there and continues to tell me weird experiences he has down there. Everything from dolls being nailed to the walls inside the distillery to a homeless guy shooting at him down there. I decided I wanted to check it out. Jay, a few friends, and I decided to go to the distillery the following weekend and explore the area around it. Our plan was for me to drive my car and Jay to drive his car. We had a total of 8 people going with us, and for me to follow Jay there. Friday comes, and the whole day at school we were getting psyched up for our trip. At about 10 that night, we all meet and saddle up. I follow Jay in his car with my 4 passengers, and Jay drives his car with 2 passengers. We drove for what seemed like forever, about 45 minutes. I didn't even know if we were in the same town. Jay turned his car onto a little 2-lane road. This road seemed pretty normal, no sign of anything out of the ordinary. I keep following Jay's car down this road for about another 5 minutes. That's when things started getting weird. The road got smaller, and as we passed the street sign that just had the word hell spray painted on it, we passed a couple houses that had weird red lights on the inside and a few houses that looked like they were falling apart. A little further past, we passed a distillery and took a left up another holler. This road was even crazier. It was almost straight up a mountain with no guardrail on the side. If we were to swerve off this road, we were dead. We get to the top of the hill and keep following this road until we came upon a gravel driveway. Jay stopped his car. "This is it," he said, as he got out of his car and walked over to mine. I noticed some strange things right off the bat. The driveway leads up to a huge house surrounded by trees. And the trees, I noticed ropes hanging from them. They look like nooses. There were signs posted everywhere about shooting anyone who came onto the property. I also noticed a weird rock formation in a clearing of trees off to the side of the road, almost like a Stonehenge type deal. After talking to Jay for a little while about the route and how we were going to take it back home, we noticed lights coming down the drive, a few of them. "Drive! Drive!" Jay shouted as we took off back to his car. I immediately floored it. I left Jay and his passenger in the dust. I almost hit 3 deer that jumped out in front of the car. My buddy in the backseat started asking us if we had seen those things behind us. I asked him what he was talking about, and he said that there was what looked like dogs in the road behind us. He said they looked like dogs but were way too big to be dogs. We got back to town and stopped at a Waffle House to rehash what just happened. Jay said that he had seen a few dirt bikes and ATVs coming down the drive, and we didn't want to be around when they got down there. Could this have been the cult everyone was talking about? We never know. If it was, let's not meet again.